What do you know about cyanide? It's dangerous stuff, man. That's what I know about it. Cyanide's here to fuck up living things and work in industry. And if there aren't any factories around, it's going to go for the living things. Let's talk about it a little bit. There's all kinds of ways that you could get exposed to cyanide. You could breathe it in, you could take it as a pill, you could ingest it, swallow it, any kind of way. Interestingly enough, there's a lot of cyanide, actually a not zero amount, in the seeds of all kinds of stone fruits, so things like cherries, especially when you try to make something out of the pits of cherries rather than throw those things away. That's where a number of people have actually had some cyanide toxicity and cyanide poisoning in the past, but peach pits or apple cores will certainly have it as well. Again, you're not eating a whole lot of apple cores, but probably if you ate enough of them, you actually could pretty well screw yourself up. Cyanide's also used in, as I mentioned, a lot of different industry, and so it's floating around the country all the time. It's a very important chemical to use in a lot of industrial processes, and you got to get it from place to place. So it's probably floating in down a barge, or I don't know if it goes on barges, but at least on the back of a train, or possibly even on a truck, and you may not even know it. It's out there and you may run into it. The other place where you see cyanide a lot is that it comes off of things when you burn them. Now, everything probably produces a little bit of cyanide at least, but the places where you normally think of it is not so much like a campfire or like a wood fire or something like that. It's typically things that are like pieces of foam or old couches or stuff like that, things that have had an industrial process to make them. Stuff that occurs in nature, yeah, it produces some cyanide, but it's not the big producer that we typically think of. But the old lady who was trapped on the floor of her house as it sort of was burning around her, where her couch kind of caught on fire, or even the guy that was standing next to a couch that was on fire, or in industrial accidents, or anytime when you burn a bunch of plastic, that's certainly a time when I might think, there could be a lot of cyanide involved there. And it's probably worth treating pretty much anybody that we pull out of a fire that looks like, kind of like garbage. If they're not holding their own, they probably could benefit from a cyanide kit. Now, it's also out there as well. You could buy this stuff for a long time as a rat poison. There are actually some cases out there right now where it's being used for wildlife control, where they have like a baited thing that this little spray squirts up into their mouth and then poisons the animal. Coyotes and stuff like that, but also humans. If you remember the Tylenol murders back in the 80s, some guy took a bunch of Tylenol capsules and actually injected a little bit of cyanide into them and then closed them, put them back on the shelf, and then some poor person comes along and buys them, takes Tylenol when they feel a little bit bad. And it was really kind of a scary thing because this is the sort of poison where literally you take it and a couple minutes later you're dead. They would just find the person, they would say, I've got a little bit of a headache. They would go up to their room, they would find them dead 20 minutes later. One of the reasons why I think you certainly have to respect it, if not be interested in it. It's one of those things where you actually take it and then a couple minutes later you're just dead. And that's pretty unique in terms of poisons for humans. It is such an effective poison that we actually used it judicially for some time before we figured out that it was actually a very horrible way to die and wasn't actually the thing that was going to be more humane than we kind of thought it was going to be after all. But folks that were executed by lethal gas, typically it was with cyanide, at least up until recently, and a little cyanide tablet would drop into a bucket of sulfuric acid underneath the chair, and the vapor would come up, and they'd tell the person, take 2 breaths, and it'll be basically over. And that's probably true. They were essentially dead at 2 breaths, but it's a really awful way to die. The reason that it is an awful way to die and what it does and what makes it such a deadly poison is that it shuts down your ability to use oxygen. Now, this is all our metabolic pathways, and somewhere in here, I think it's out here, is the electron transport chain, the thing that allows you to take everything else that you do and then make ATP out of it and use oxygen. And if you keep the last step in the process from working, if you essentially put your hand over the end of the hose, well, then you don't get any water out of the hose. And so you don't get any ATP out of everything else that you've done. And while, yes, if you run out of glucose, you can probably find some other things to use. You can use fatty acids, or you could break down ketones or something like that. But if you break down the last step in the process, then you just can't get past it. And so cyanide affects all your tissues and pretty much everything you do, and everything that uses oxygen, cyanide potentially can really, again, fuck you up. So how do you know if somebody has cyanide toxicity? Well, again, the picture is going to be somebody that just looks kind of like butt. Everything is shutting down. They are dying, essentially. And there is no good test for it. There's no real lab test that we can give or do to somebody. If you check them, their lactate's probably up, but your lactate goes up in response to everything. So how do you know that the person had cyanide toxicity? Well, you probably don't, at least while they're alive. You might make it an autopsy, but if you don't act quickly on this, they're not going to make it long enough for you to figure out that they actually were exposed to a significant amount of cyanide. And that's why we have to act quickly. Thankfully, the treatment for this is straightforward, a little bit expensive, but not that. Straightforward, easy to use, has a wide therapeutic window, and probably is not going to cause you problems if you got it mistakenly. And that is what's now referred to today as the cyano kit. This is hydroxycobalamin. This is essentially a B vitamin that comes in a big vial that you give to somebody with cyanide toxicity. And the idea is that it will go around, picks up the little cyanides off of your electron transport chains, and then binds them up so that they can't actually do anything in the body itself, and then you pee them out over a period of time. This is, again, a relatively safe medicine. There's not a whole lot that goes on with it. If you got too much of it, well, it's a B vitamin, and you pee it out, and it's typically okay. You could have a little bit of like crystal formation in your urine, so you got to watch your renal function after that. But it is a very safe medicine to give to almost anybody. About the biggest thing that you'll kind of notice is that it screws up some lab tests because it changes the color of your blood and it changes the color of your plasma and of your skin and your urine. So this is somebody that's gotten a cyano kit, and you notice how pink they are and how red their urine is, and you would think like, oh my God, they're bleeding. Well, they're not actually bleeding. There's no blood cells in that. That's just the color of the product itself. And again, your plasma will turn that color too, so it screws up some lab tests that they do based on colors and things like that. But it is, in and of itself, a very safe medicine to give. The dose is something like this: 5 grams over 15 minutes for adults. How big is an adult? I don't know, 40 kilograms, 70 kilograms, something like that. It's adult size. It's grown person size, or teenager size, or even small teenager size. 5 grams over 15 minutes of what comes in the kit. Thankfully, you don't have to remember that dose. Just remember that you give a bottle to an adult, or an adult-sized person. Even a small adult-sized person. Now, there is a peds dosing in there if you were to find a child, pull, a toddler out or something like that. And there is a dose. It's 70 milligrams per kilogram. I don't know exactly how much that is. There's 5 grams in the vial, and we could make the, the mathing that I've kind of done there. The dose ends up at somewhere around 3 milliliters per kilogram. Okay, you could do that, or you could just give, because this is a really kind of complex bit of math to do, especially while you just pulled this kid out of the fire, you could just kind of estimate and say, he's about half of an adult size. He's maybe 40 pounds. We're going to give him half a bottle. Okay, cool. He's a third of an adult size. He's a quarter of adult size. He's a toddler. We're going to give him a quarter of a vial. Okay, yes, as always, ideally, you would like to be able to give the exact dose that's recommended by the manufacturer, because that's what's recommended by the manufacturer and probably in your protocol. But from a practical standpoint, what you give is really okay. That number looks all right to me. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? He's going to get a little bit red. What's the best thing that's going to happen? You're going to save his life. So don't get too wrapped up in the dosing. Estimating is pretty much just fine. Now let's go back to the kit itself. When you administer this thing, which I'll show you here in just a second, but to talk through it first, the nice thing about this particular kit itself is that it has everything that you need except for a bag of fluids and a functioning IV. And that's all you need. You don't need to get anything else out. You don't need to find a bunch of flushes or anything like that. All you need is an IV in the guy's arm, or kid's arm, whoever it is, and a little bit of fluid to go with it. And I'll show you how all that works here in just a second. When you open the thing up, you're going to look at that thing and you're going to think, wow, that's really dark. That's like black. What's in there exactly? What is in there is the medicine that's been dried on the side of the bottle itself for storage. And if you were to open up that end and look at it, it's actually not black like it kind of looks. It's actually really deep red. And when you fill this bottle up, you're going to see that this thing turns as red as anything you've ever seen. And that's okay. That is exactly what it is supposed to be. If it's not red, then you should be worried that you've got like a training vial or something like that. But yes, this thing is dark red and super sparkly, almost looks like glitter adhered to the side of the tube itself, the vial itself. How do you use the thing? Well, again, the only extra thing that you need is a little bit of saline. And saline is just fine for it. Take a 250 bag or a 500 bag or a liter bag. It doesn't really matter because you're going to do the following. The kit contains a little spike in the middle of it that's got a spike on both ends. You're going to pop the top off of the vial itself. You're going to uncap the spike, and you're going to pop the top off of the cap off the end of the IV bag. Then you're going to use the fluid in the bag, which you've now got spiked and continuously flowing in here. Using that, you're going to fill it up to the line on the vial. You can turn the vial if for some reason it got twisted around or something, but you'll be able to see exactly how much it goes in there. Once you've got it filled to that line, you don't have to remember how much it is. The volume is 250, but you don't have to remember that. Just fill the thing up to the line. And what happens if you put it a little bit too much in there? Meh. Who cares? It's a little extra. You're still just going to give the thing, generally speaking. So fill it up to the line as best as you can. Take the bag of fluid off there. Now you want to agitate it a little bit by swirling it. They recommend not shaking the thing, going like that, because it'll make it really foamy and then it'll be hard to get out. And you don't want to do that. So just take the thing and swirl it around pretty good, and you will dissolve all the dried crystal off the side of the vial itself. And that'll give you, again, up to that line, a really dark sort of substance that you're then going to respike using the included IV set that is in there. You will spike that, attach that to the person, and run the thing in. How long do you give it? 10 minutes-ish. Basically, again, you put this in here, and then you let the thing go in, and it should go over about 10 minutes or so. Cyanide is incredibly deadly. And if you have cyanide poison, there's almost nothing that's going to fix you. Nothing else will do it. There's no good test to tell if you actually have cyanide poisoning. And the side effects, thankfully, from this medication, as well as the dose itself, are very low, and you can use it over a wide range of people. In the end, if you pull somebody out of a fire or you think they may have been exposed to cyanide for one way, shape, or form, you just give the thing. There is really no reason not to, and you won't hurt anybody by doing it. If you think the person has been exposed to cyanide, you ought to be giving them a cyano kit. So I wanted to take a minute and show you the actual kit itself and how this, again, practically works, because getting your hands on it will be pretty important. If you don't have one of these available somewhere to you, just ask the company on their website, can we get a training kit to use for our department? Because the first time you have to use it is probably the time when it's really critical, and figuring it out doesn't work all that well. So when you open the kit itself, you end up with a number of things inside it. And again, I've opened this before. So typically speaking, you'll have the little bag with this little spike in the center of it, this guy. You will get a bit of IV tubing with a dedicated line at the top, and you will get the vial of material itself. And again, typically speaking, when you see these things, this is going to look essentially black when you open it up. It's clear right now because this is a training one, but you will see this is like super dark red and sparkly on the inside. And again, that's the way that it's supposed to go. But it is a regular old vial, just like you might use anyplace else. Now, how do you actually put the thing together? If you don't remember what I'm saying right now, thankfully, you can follow the instructions that are provided to you. Where are the instructions? Well, they're on the back of the box. They are on the little card on the inside of the box. And the vial itself has the instructions for use on it. But again, it's pretty quick. Here's what you do. So you start with the vial, you take the cap off it. This little spike, pull the caps off of that, and spike the vial. Whoever said medicine was easy. Now again, the only thing that you won't have in the kit to make this work that you're going to need is a bag of fluid. So I have here a 500 ml bag of saline that I have now taken the cap off, and I start filling it up. Again, how much fluid am I going to squeeze in there? I'm going to fill it up to the line. Again, you could just drip it in, but time is money, and we got to save lives here. And again, you could just drip it in, but I'm going to give it a little bit of a squeeze. That's going to take a second, yes. We're almost there. And you'll notice the motion that I'm kind of doing with my hands. If you squeeze tightly, you're going to reach some point where you're just not able to get any more in there. You have to relax for a second and let the air vent back up into the bag before more will come in there. All right, we have reached the line. This again will be a deep red solution. I take the spike out, throw it to the side for the moment. So now I need to mix the whole thing up. I need to agitate the thing. And you can do that by swirling it or by going up and down and up and down and up and down like so. They suggest you do this for 60 seconds before you actually administer the product. The thing they don't want you to do is like shake weight this thing because that'll make it foamy on the inside and then it'll be hard to get out. Once we've swirled it for about 60 seconds or so, we're basically ready to give to the person. So they have an IV line. So somewhere along the line, somebody has to have started an IV on the person. So it does come with its own dedicated IV tubing. Again, you don't have to have anything other than some fluid and an IV to get this going. We spike the bag, or spike the vial, rather. We need to flush the line to get it up to the patient because we'd rather not get all that. And you may look at this and be like, why the hell isn't it going in there? And I give that a little squeeze, but it's still not really going anywhere. Well, yeah, there's a cap on it, but the cap's not the problem. There's this little vent that you have to open up. And now we're flowing in real well. So that's pretty much all there is to it. Step 1, get the vial. Step 2, take the cap off. Step 3, put the little transfer spike in. Step 4, spike a bag of saline and start squirting it in. Fill it up to the line. Pull off the transfer spike. Now you're ready to give it. Remember, it comes with its own dedicated line. Looks like this. Now of note, on top of this thing, there is a little thing that you can unfold and we'll give you something to hang this with. Yes, you could just get a firefighter to do this, but it looks much more elegant to use this thing and attach to your actual IV pole itself. Don't worry, this thing isn't going anywhere. You are not going to be able to rip this box apart. But then you put it up and you let the whole thing go in. And again, how much do you give? Well, if it is an adult or an adult-sized kid, then you would give an adult dose, which is this vial. If it is another kid, you can kind of estimate, are they half the size of an adult? What's their weight compared to a 70 kilogram normal sized adult? Is it about half that? Well, give about half the vial. Remember, this is a safe medicine. The worst thing that could happen is that you get wrapped up in how much does this kid need and he doesn't get it. So again, cyanide's deadly. There's no good test for it. There is a treatment with a very low chance of side effects and a very wide dosing range. And it works for pretty much everybody. So you should give it to anybody that you think may have been exposed to cyanide who now looks like, again, kind of like butt. We'll see you on the next one.